The Goode Doomsday Prophecy. Are we all going to die after being incinerated by a micronova coming out of the sun? So that's the topic today on Afterlife Topics and Metaphysics. And this relates, of course, to a man named Goode, who I have mentioned a couple of times on this channel. If you're not familiar with who this guy is, he came on the scene back around 2015, and he was a insider with a guy named David Wilcock, who is a very popular esoteric author. And Goode claims to be a government empath, or was recruited as a government empath and a liaison for extraterrestrials. So his latest revelation is, it's an ongoing sort of, we call it the Goode prophecy, that involves a solar flare, although this concept has taken some weird twists in the last couple of weeks, and so I want to talk about that. If you don't know who this guy is, well, I still think this is an interesting topic, because really I want to even talk about the nature of doomsday prophecies themselves, and really what my thoughts are about this type of thing before we go packing our bags and moving into underground shelters and buying canned beans. So something to think about. So anyway, before we begin, you are watching Afterlife Topics and Metaphysics. Let's do some quick announcements, some news. I know it's been a few days again since I've made any uploads. I was a bit under the weather, to say the least, the last couple of days. I did a post on the main Afterlife Topics group discussing that. I got hit by, I guess, what would be called an encephalactic reaction to something. This would mean like brain swelling. And it resulted in like a really horrible psychotropic experience. I don't recommend this for anybody. I'm just here by myself in Hanoi, Vietnam. So it was pretty scary. Maybe I'll talk more about this later, or you can find the thread on the forum. But the point is, I'm okay. I've been kind of unwell today, but my fever is finally broken, and I'm doing okay. Next bit of news. So I do have a Patreon that's coming out. This channel exceeded 1,000 subscribers, and YouTube rejected my the first attempt of monetizing the channel. So it goes through like 2 different levels, and of course, if you get rejected from both, you're out of luck. And they rejected the first one, but there's no logical reason why, except that they just don't like the subjects we're talking about. So they don't want to support the work I'm doing. Or more accurately, some guy in an office has to click yes or no on different people's channels, and he was like, what is this stuff? Supernatural stuff, woo-woo stuff, nah, and then they click probably the big red X or whatever it might be. So of course that hurts me really badly. I do this work a lot, whether it's writing books or running the classes and doing the videos and maintaining and doing all the moderation for the community and other projects as well. And the monetization would really help me, and now that's probably been nixed. So I do have a Patreon page that's under review right now. God knows. I hope this won't befall the same fate as my channel when we go into the world of censorship and, I guess, basically topics that are taboo to talk about because certain powers that be don't want to talk about them. While we do this, I'm just going to check real quick my space on my hard drive, make sure that we have enough space to make a video here. We do. Perfect. So yeah, that's a big issue. So I do have a Patreon page coming out here very shortly. It's under review, and when that's done, then anybody who wants to put in a couple bucks a month, it'll start as low as $3 a month, and that basically will allow me to eat because I work on entrepreneurial stuff. I live out of a backpack in strange parts of the world. All my worldly possessions are in a let me show you. All my worldly possessions are in this backpack. So this is it, everything I own. So yeah, that would really help if anybody wants to become a patron. So all that out of the way, let's dive back into the video. And oh yeah, please hit that subscribe button. If nothing else, that really, really helps me is to subscribe to the channel. All right, so let's talk about Corey Goode and the Corey Goode Doomsday Prophecy, which is been on my mind lately because, as I spoke about in the intro, I mean, Corey Goode, he's a very controversial figure. If you don't know who he is, you can put him on YouTube. There's going to be a few free episodes of Cosmic Disclosure floating around. So Cosmic Disclosure was the show that he became, I guess you could say, famous on. And this was through Gaia TV. But since then, he's appeared in more mainstream shows. I know he's been on Ancient Aliens, for whatever that's worth. Probably not much. But here's the thing. Okay, so the guy claims that he was a government empath. He recruited at like age 6. By the military, and he went on to join the faction of what is commonly called a secret space program. Now, if you don't know what this is, there's been a lot, and when I mean a lot, I mean hundreds of people who have all come out saying that they did some kind of work in a underground faction of the government that goes off into space and builds bases on moons and has this whole super futuristic science fiction existence that the average person doesn't know about. But this is where the $20 trillion missing from the federal United States budget went into. $20 trillion, that's almost the entire GDP of the whole planet, is about how much it would cost to have a successful space program that nobody knows about. And so Corey Goode, oh yeah, by the way, there's been evidence about this that just came out. There's even a WikiLeaks cable that points to a document talking about U.S. moon bases. So, and then we had this guy who was a hacker, Gary McKinnon, I think was his name, who hacked into some, I believe, CIA files and actually found documents relating to the very same program that Corey Goode claims that he was enrolled in. And that Corey Goode says that, in this position with the secret society, with the secret space program, because he's a very powerful empath, he was hired so that government officials, if they're making deals or meeting with extraterrestrials, they communicate typically telepathically, and Corey Goode's job was to be able to transmit information, relay what the ETs are thinking, and help people in the military get an idea if this ET is good or bad, or basically what to expect. So that's a really shortened version of a really crazy story that kind of gets crazier and crazier. So I lean toward believing in a lot of this because there's a cross-corroborated effect with other insiders who claim that they've had the same experiences. These people have had their body language analyzed by experts, and they've shown to be telling the truth, at least that they believe what they're saying. Critics, though, will say, well, we don't know where their memories came from. I've even postulated that some of these people, and again, there's many people out there like Corey Goode with these same stories, they could be having like crazy astral projection experiences. Experiences in this astral version of this world where it looks and feels like this world, but maybe on that side there's ETs and spaceships everywhere, right? That seems perfectly plausible to me also. So the Corey Goode Doomsday Prophecy. And one more thing. So there is some evidence to support Corey Goode's notions. And Michael Sally here at exopolitics.org, he chronicles a lot of that. So we've had Corey Goode release a document in the past that was verifiable as having come from, I think, the Department of Defense. We have Corey Goode is working with some general in the military who is undisclosed. We don't know his name, but like 3 different researchers have already met with him, and this person confirms Corey's story. There's also been two Marine Corps anonymous insiders who were vetted by Linda Moulton Howe, a very famous ufologist, who also verified some of Corey's claims in regard to secret space programs and some specific things Corey has talked about. So all that is out there, but you can research if you want. So there is evidence to support this guy. So this makes it all the more troubling when, given all of this data, here's an image of Corey in one of the blue spheres. So he claims to be a liaison with a group of extraterrestrials who are so advanced they come in the form of these big blue balls of light energy, and they also work as ships. And so when he goes off to have a meeting with a bunch of ETs, a blue orb of light will just come into his room, envelop him, and then he'll be in that, suspended in that orb of light, and then he'll shoot off through the cosmos. That's one of his claims. He also claims to be in touch with these like very albino-looking future humans. So they're not even ETs; they're actually us from the far future. They're trying to warn us of like imminent destruction. He's been abducted by different factions of different militaries. Yeah. So anyway, so there is some evidence to support this, what Goode claims. And so it's all the more troubling when Corey Goode's like primary sort of thing that he sells us is the idea that there is going to be what some call a solar event, a solar flash. What does that mean? Well, all of this has been married with a lot of things that David Wilcock talks about. The idea that there's going to be this higher energy frequency shift, and suddenly we're all going to start having powers. We're going to become like those advanced ETs. We can have telepathy. This includes life after death stuff. Allegedly, when this kind of shift happens, we'll be able to talk to deceased people. Our world and like the astral world will be like very close to each other. So it's going to be a whole different, type of existence. Sounds lovely. Sounds really great. But to get there, originally what was being told by what Corey Goode was telling us was that this will be signaled by a huge solar burst of energy, and this would unfortunately knock out all of our electronics for a couple of weeks. So they've recommended stockpiling on canned goods, having some generators handy, that type of thing. Because according to Goode, within the next like 13 years before the end of this solar cycle, before we hit this solar minimum, I don't know all the details about how that works. I'm not a scientist, but then that event is going to happen. So yeah, okay, maybe some electronics will be knocked out. Some people probably will die. If you're in a hospital on life support, you're going to be in bad shape. But leading up to that, there's going to be all this increase of energy, and it should be a very positive experience, but it's also going to change people's behaviors, and it's going to do all this kind of stuff. I've always followed it, found it very interesting. At some point, this prediction by Corey Goode has transformed into a doomsday prophecy, and dare I say, a doomsday cult. Because Corey Goode is no longer calling this a solar flash. He's now calling this a solar micronova. And the solar micronova, it has the potential of eradicating all life on Earth and leaving us as a charred, scorched desert. And that Corey Goode believes that this is what happened to the galaxy like 500,000 years ago, and this is why Mars is a desolate, dead planet. Well, actually, he says almost dead. I mean, they believe there's still like the basic life forms on Mars, but like basically it's a mostly dead planet, because the solar system had experienced this cosmic flash back then, which begs the question: why isn't the planet Earth a big scorched desert if these solar micronovas wipe out all of life? So that little hole in the story hasn't exactly been vetted out. I'd love to ask Corey that question. But the point is that it's gone from a solar flare that's going to wipe out electronics for a couple of weeks to a solar micronova that's going to kill everybody unless you're like a mile underground, or maybe half a kilometer at least underground with a full stockpile. And then you might have a chance of surviving. And of course, all of humanity being wiped out, what's going to happen is that the extraterrestrials are going to come in kind of in this big Noah's Ark scenario to try to save us. But, how much room are on these ET spaceships? Probably not enough. So again, going to like this is like marrying itself to these kind of weird biblical predictions about, people, what is it, like 144,000 people will be allowed to, rebuild the planet after the end of the world. So it's like this idea is marrying itself with all of these biblical ideas. And, the end result is, now we have people who are going to be becoming doomsday preppers because of this, because, they'll be building these bomb shelters in their yards and, freaking out that within the next 13 years, there's going to be a micronova and most likely it's going to kill you. It's going to reduce basically everything on this planet to like obsidian glass. It's just going to be this charred, like black glass everywhere. This is what Goode mentioned in his presentation in Hawaii a few days ago. And unless you're one of the lucky ones who gets on board a spaceship. But then you get to go have a life with ETs while knowing that your entire family is dead. So, there's that. And then, then there's the flip side. It's like, well, I've talked to people now supporting this idea, and they're like, well, it's not a big deal if we all die because all our consciousness will be ascending up to a higher level. Nobody really dies. Life after death, blah, blah, blah. It's all the stuff I talk about. It's like, okay, great. In that case, if that's what Ascension means, us all dying from a solar nova, then we could do this to ourselves by just eradicating our planet with nuclear weapons. Like, if Ascension just means dying, that kind of beats the point, doesn't it? So, obviously, I'm not somebody to believe in end-of-the-world theories. Even ones where there is a bit of evidence. So there is more evidence behind what Corey Goode talks about, in my opinion, than most other areas in this exopolitical or supernatural or conspiracy type of world. He does have there's some stuff there, but it's not enough for me to, start digging a hole. It's not enough for me to start changing my plans. This is some info about the solar cycle. Basically, this thing is supposed to hit and kill everybody within the next 13 years. Yeah, but anyway, so what I find really weird about this whole thing, and this is why I want to make the video, is how is it that this concept evolved from a solar flash to a doomsday Armageddon scenario? And ultimately, I feel like something's up with this, and I think it would be very foolish to begin staking bets on this thing happening. I've seen so many doomsday cults and doomsday prophecies in my life. I remember back on University of Arizona campus, back around long time ago, like maybe 2009, 10 years ago, I remember that there was this doomsday cult that believed that the world was ending in 2010, and they were so adamant about this, and they came to campus preaching their thing every day. They were out of their minds. And they had a specific date. I don't remember what it was. Maybe it was like January 5th, 2010 or something, because they had all the mathematics worked out, which was just a bunch of, crazy writings by some crazy, hardcore religious cult leader. And of course, nothing happened on that day. And then they were all left kind of like eating a bunch of crow as a result of that. And that's just one example. I mean, these doomsday prophecies, they come and they go. So even when you have somebody like Corey Goode, who has the capability of convincing people, what we're left with is just another doomsday prophecy. And here's my main point with all of this, is that when you get into fields related to the esoteric and the supernatural, as soon as anything happens that begins to interrupt your quality of life, that is when you need to take a step back and evaluate what's happening. This channel, we talk about astral projection, life after death. If you begin getting involved in that and it's hurting your normal quality of life, your relationships, and your happiness, you got to take a step back, because that's kind of the spiritual way of saying something is guiding you off course. If I were to follow, because I've been on the fence about Corey. I was a big Corey Goode skeptic. Then I began to believe him a little bit more. Then I became a skeptic again. Then I began believing him again. If I were now to follow him down this path, that the world is going to end in 13 years and we're all going to be incinerated unless you manage to get to an ET spaceship first, that would interrupt my quality of life. That would hurt me. It would hurt the work I do. It would depress me. It would lead to depression. It would hurt my motivation to do work, and it would make me change my plans in life to do things that I don't want to do. Instead of planning to maybe live in Asia, or I don't know, keep working in my businesses, maybe teach, maybe end up with some long-term girlfriend or relationship out here, whatever it might be, like all those plans are going to be cut because I'm going to be worried about building a freaking bomb shelter because I've decided to put my faith into, magical blue sphere guy. And I mean, all of his experiences, maybe these are just astral projection experiences, and maybe, to put it bluntly, something is effing with him. We don't know. We don't have enough facts. We don't have enough data. And I frankly believe it's irresponsible for Corey Goode to be coming out with this information, for him to be changing his storyline into a religious cult, because that's what it seems like is happening. As soon as we start going to the end of the world, a timeline for the end of the world, building bomb shelters and buying canned beans and joining communities, it doesn't matter what the circumstances are, and especially if all this revolves around one person, that is when it's time to take a step back. Alright, you're watching Afterlife Topics and Metaphysics. Thanks for watching this lecture. I hope you liked it. You can get involved at afterlifetopics.com. Check out my books like Understanding Life After Death, The Afterlife, and Beyond, which just came out last summer and filled with more information about these subjects and topics of disclosure, life after death, spirituality, the astral world, and the stuff that I investigate and explore. Or you can join the group and contact me personally on there. And that's it for this time. I'll get a new video out soon, and I'll talk to you guys soon.